Okay. Okay. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you to Lauren for promoting me to panelist. I couldn't quite find the link.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year. Yeah.
Happy rainy season.
Chair Murphy at 6 p.m. if you want to call the meeting to order.
I agree with that, Neil.
Chair
I
Murphy,
see 6 o'clock.
can you hear me?
Are we okay to get started?
Can you hear me? Chair Murphy?
Harry, are you ready?
Chair Murphy, can you hear me? Oh, no.
So we have been having a few kind of glitches, so maybe Carrie needs another minute. It's mainly been with audio, so last week at the council, she could hear everything, it just no one could hear her, so let's give her a second.
No problem.
And it is nice to see everyone. Seems like it's been a long time since we've had a meeting.
You know, I do see that Hans, who I asked to join this meeting, he's our reviewer for Rancho Adobe Fire Protection District. He has his hand up, and I wonder if we can see what he needs right away.
I don't think we've called the meeting to order, so Noah and JPI could wait and then make sure to open it up to.
However you want to do it. Yeah, it's just, I asked him to be here tonight since he did review the application we're going to be looking at, but I don't think, well, anyway, let's see what happens. Okay.
Okay.
Well, he's all good.
Does participant web ID? I got that. I give.
your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue. You have joined the meeting at your chamber and will be muted throughout the meeting.
I need you to convert me over.
It's got me as a attendee. I need to be a panelist. Mm-hmm. Hello? Testing?
Testing, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Carrie.
I apologize. It appears I had to call in again.
Okay. I think everybody else is ready if you are.
Okay.
Okay, we can call the meeting to order.
Hans Henneberg is as an attendee, and he may have some questions. We're not sure, but we'll go ahead and get going, and then we can check on it.
What is that sound?
Great. Does anyone else hear music in the background? It was a nice way to start off. Okay, I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. There we go. I think we're okay now. So I will call to order the City of Cotati Planning Commission special meeting on Tuesday, January 18th, 2022 at 6 p.m. And we will start with agenda item B, which is Planning Commission reorganization.
Thank you, Chair Murphy. So yes, as happens every January, the City Council has a process where they, the existing mayor is replaced by the vice mayor typically. And so the Planning Commission follows a similar process yearly where the existing chair relinquishes that seat, and there's while it's typically assumed that the vice chair would take that position, in my experience, it's often helpful to kind of go through a nomination process, make sure the vice chair is ready and able to fulfill that role. You know, we all have challenges and things that happen in our lives on a day-to-day, and so it's good just to check in and make sure the vice chair is still able to fulfill that role, nominate and vote to install the vice chair as the chair. And then the Planning Commission then takes the time to nominate and choose a new vice chair who backs up the chair and leads the meetings if the current chair is not able to, and then also looks to the following year to hope to be able to serve in the role as chair.
Okay, thank you, Noah. So if I'm understanding this correctly, we will first verify that our Vice Chair Lemus, is still in a position where she is able and interested to be nominated for the chair position.
Correct.
And yes, I am, if that's what the next step. I am in a position where I'm willing, if nominated, to take the chair position.
Wonderful. So the next step will be, can we get a nomination for the chair position for 2022?
I'll nominate Sylvia Lemus to be the chair.
I'll second.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Hancock,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lemus,
Yes.
Chair Murphy,
Yes.
and I'm showing Commissioner Rodriguez absent.
Yeah, we received an email saying he was not going to be able to make it this evening.
And then the next item will be to ask for any nominations for a vice chair.
That's correct.
I think Sylvia's okay if she wants to choose a vice chair, but I'm happy also to volunteer.
Yeah, I was just gonna move to nominate Neil, if Neil is interested in being the vice chair.
I would accept that, yeah.
Wonderful. Can we have a roll call?
Who was the second?
Who was the second on that?
Oh, I'll second that.
We have Chair Murphy,
We have Chair Murphy,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Hancock,
Commissioner Hancock,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lee.
Vice Chair Lemus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then as a follow-up, is it now appropriate for us to hand the meeting over to Commissioner Lemus, or should we wait until it is? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Chair Lemus is now in control.
I'm up.
Wonderful.
Okay. Okay, so thank you. So the next item, thank you, everybody. And thank you to Vice Chair and all the other commissioners. So the next item we have on the agenda is a roll call. Is that a regular roll call for the entire commission? Is that correct?
Yes.
Can we go ahead and start that, Steph?
She's talking to me. Did we want to do?
Did we want to do an official roll call at this time?
That's correct, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moore,
Commissioner Moore,
Yes. Here.
Commissioner Murphy,
Commissioner Murphy,
Here.
Vice Chair Hancock,
Vice Chair Hancock,
Yeah.
and Chair
and
Lemus.
Chair Lemus.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next we'll move on to the next item, which is approval of the minutes. So we have in our packet the minutes of June 21st. Should we do them one by one? That's probably how we should do them, right? Okay, so we have the minutes of June 21st that was in a packet. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes of June 21st?
You don't, actually, Chair Lemus, you don't have a quorum for that because
Oh.
Jonathan is not here.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's not three of us to vote on those minutes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And that might happen on the next minutes also.
Okay, let me look and see. Okay. So that's for the minutes of the June 21st. We'll have to wait on those. So we're going to postpone those to the next meeting. And then the next one's for September 7th. Let's see. Present. Yes, we also don't have a quorum for September 7th. And then we do have a quorum for November 1st. So does someone want to make a motion to approve the minutes of November 1st?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for November 1st, 2021.
And I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. And now for the next item, recognition. We want to recognize Chair Brittany Murphy for serving this last year. Is there something that staff is going to speak on for this recognition?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Lemus. I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you to outgoing Chair Murphy. She served on the commission since 2019, came on right shortly before I think I was hired, or right around the same time as me coming to the city. Has served in the role as vice chair prior to being chair last year. And just over the last 2 years, you've all really experienced the challenges of the Zoom meeting format and just the overall pandemic issues that we've been dealing with. And Chair Murphy, as all of you, just have done an excellent job with this, and just really want to just take a moment and say thank you. And just really, as staff, we really appreciate how much Chair Murphy, and again, all of you, really just remind us of the community perspective and really kind of point out the things that we may be taking for granted or may not be as laser focused on as we should as staff, just trying to deliver professional work. But, neither JP or myself live in Cotati. And so we just really appreciate Chair Murphy always kind of bringing back that point. And overall, all the commissioners kind of reminding us of the community perspective. And just want to say thank you, and then obviously give all the other commissioners a chance to say thank you. I think their tradition in Cotati is to have a cupcake, which obviously this is a little challenging format to do that, but I think we have rain checks on order, and maybe a couple of years worth of rain checks for that once we are able to all get together in person.
Well, thank you, Brittany. We appreciate your leadership for this last year, and it's been really difficult for all of us, and not being able to get together. Since I started, I think I haven't, other than I've seen maybe Neil somewhere at the Cotati Plaza, but I haven't really got a chance to interact personally with anybody. So hopefully in the future, we'll have that opportunity to meet Brittany and to interact. So thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. It's very kind.
I agree. I think you've done a great job, Brittany. And like you said, under these circumstances, with glitches in audio and everything that we've had to deal with, and I think you've done a tremendous job. So thank you for your service. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Brittany came on board and we had one of the biggest packets ever. And that was the introduction Brittany had to the meeting and dove into it. So this last year has been very good, just keeping it on track. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I look forward to the cupcakes.
Okay, thank you. And the next item we have is, are there any changes to the agenda for today?
There's no changes, Chair Lemus.
Okay. Any oral or written communications that we received?
I don't believe we received any other communication separate from the packet. Carrie?
We have not received.
We have not received any.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then we're going to move on to the matters at hand. So today we have a request for a use permit, Eagle Eye Cannabis. And is there presentation reports by staff on this?
Senior
There is,
Planner
Chair
J.P.
Lemus.
Aries has this one.
Okay, thank you very much. Tonight we're talking about Eagle Eye is the business name. They're requesting a level 2 cannabis manufacturing use permit. This is agenda item H1 and the begins on packet page 19, of your packet. I do want to say that the applicants are online. All right, the applicant is online and is available for questions as well. Representative of the Rancho Adobe Fire Protection District is also online and is available for questions at the end of this presentation. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So I want to give you some background because I know cannabis doesn't come before the Planning Commission too often, and normally these permits go to City Council, except for where there's a use permit requirement. But in November 7th of 2017, Cotati voters passed Measure G. This established a cannabis business tax. Upon the successful implementation of that tax, or the voting in of that tax, the city moved forward with adoption of our commercial cannabis ordinance. As well, it established the parameters for personal cultivation on residential properties, and basically creating the law that all homegrown marijuana must be grown indoors, so no outdoor growing anywhere within the city limits was a big part of that. It established the locations and regulations for commercial cannabis activity. And essentially that really put all the cultivation and manufacturing uses kind of in the industrial area. As well, it allowed for a couple retail uses in the commercial Gravenstein corridor area. And it established a maximum allowable number of different commercial cannabis uses. So we actually have limits on the number of cannabis uses we can have. And I'm going to talk about that briefly in the next couple slides. So anyways, since February 18th, the city council has granted permits to 11 potential businesses. Some of them have multiple licenses, but of those 15, 11 businesses are operating or, and more importantly, they're making progress towards operational businesses. So we don't have 11 actually operating at this time. We have a few that are operating. And then of those 15, 6 have expired or were withdrawn or abandoned. So no business was established at all. And we still have made those permits available to others that might be interested. Next slide, please. And this is kind of the breakdown of how it is. We allocate our commercial cannabis licenses into 3 broad categories: cultivation, manufacturing and distribution. And manufacturing and distribution, so the manufacturing is where you're taking cannabis leaf and making other additional products out of it. So it could be candy, it could be like oils and wax that people use for vaporizing. It could be topical creams, it could be food, pretty much anything that you would make from cannabis product. Cultivation is obviously where you grow the marijuana and process it. And then within manufacturing and distribution, that also includes testing facilities under the framework of the state. All legal cannabis is required to be tested. We don't have one of those facilities, but it would be within that particular category. And then we allow storefront retail, and we have 2 of those businesses. So currently, the city has 1 license in cultivation available and 1 license in manufacturing and distribution available. And you can see how Eagle Eye has been, where they fall. So this is the applicant tonight, and they have been granted a medium indoor cultivation license that includes distribution. And they have been granted a manufacturing license, type 7, the city council authorized, but it would require this use permit approval tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means in a couple more slides. All right, next slide, please. So just generally, it's located at 351 Mercantile Drive. It's in the IG zoning district. You can see that parcel highlighted with the star there. It is surrounded by other industrial uses. Laguna de Santa Rosa runs along its southern property line. And actually directly across the street are 2 small vacant lots, just for consideration. And then I wanted down in the lower left there, what I'm showing you is kind of what uses are allowed in that district in the IG. Cultivation is permitted. This is permitted by right with a commercial cannabis permit from the city council. Level 1 manufacturing, that's manufacturing that doesn't include the use of volatile hydrocarbons as solvents. That's permitted. Testing labs are permitted. Delivery only retailer is permitted. We allow 1 of those licenses in the city. Level 2 manufacturing, what we're considering tonight, requires a use permit. And distribution is permitted in this district. Storefront retail and micro business, those are only allowed in the CG zoning district. And if you're curious, a micro business is somebody that holds, the way we use it, is someone that holds a retail license and at least 2 other licenses, like manufacturing and distribution, or cultivation and manufacturing and retail. So they get bundled into 1 license type called a micro business. And that's consistent with the state. Next slide, please. So Eagle Eye LLC, they were granted a commercial cannabis permit on December 8th, 2020 by the city council. That included level 2 manufacturing. Now, the way it works is if you're granted a level 2 manufacturing license, you can still conduct level 1 manufacturing, which is the use of non-volatile substances. N refers to a license type that the state issues, which includes like the infusion of cannabis into food, things like that. And P is basically packaging. So just packaging and getting things ready to go. So all that would fall into level 2 manufacturing. So they get to do all of those with a level 2 application. They were also granted the permit to allow for cultivation and distribution. On June 2021, they applied for building permits and they were issued. These are for tenant improvements consistent with their approval. They've had, I think, 1 or 2 inspections since then. So they are in the process. And then I think we were having a miscommunication. This is what happened is I contacted the person that works for them and, asked about their use permit. I think they weren't aware that they needed this use permit, that they thought they had bundled it all into the original application, and it's completely understandable why that might happen. But so anyway, at that point, they said, well, let's get the use permit application in. And now here we are tonight. On January 6th, we mailed out notices. It was posted in the paper on the 7th. And as of tonight, we had not received any comments on this application. Next slide, please. So this is the first floor. There's also a floor above the office area in the top right and a little floor above the nursery on the left. But pretty much the bulk of the facility is downstairs. And the area where this manufacturing would take place is about a little over 2,000 square foot area, kind of within this 19,000 square foot commercial industrial building. The building that previously had Haas Woodworking and Proline Electronics manufacturing in there. And next slide, please. So level 2 manufacturing can involve the use of volatile solvents in the extraction process. So it doesn't, level 2 manufacturing, like I was saying before, it allows you to do level 1 manufacturing as well. So they're not obligated to use volatiles, but it gives them the ability to do that. And by volatiles, I mean solvents such as propane, butane, hexane, these type of solvents, and it requires a closed loop system. And this is a very kind of stripped down view of what that system looks like. On the left, you would have a tank where your solvent goes, and then in the middle tanks, and I believe that's how this is set up on this particular system, in those middle chambers, those chambers are filled with your cannabis, leaf product or bud product, and the solvent is pumped out of that tank over into where the cannabis is stored. As the solvent passes over the cannabis, the oils and the THC and the CBD dissolves into that solvent and is kind of pulled away from the plant material. Then that solvent is then pumped into that collection chamber, which is heated, which allows the solvent to then cook off, and then delivered back over to the solvent tank where it's cooled, and that basically creates a loop process so that those solvents are never released into the air. These tanks require third-party testing and annual certification. And the below is kind of what I've been saying before. With a level 2 type 7 license, you can do level 1 type manufacturing. With a level 1 type manufacturing, you can do infusion of products. And with the type license, you can do packaging. So it's kind of like a tiered system, the way it works. One more slide, please. So this was reviewed by all city departments and several of the other agencies, most importantly, Rancho Doble Fire Protection District. And the conditions of approval that came out of that review, they are on page 77. And one of the ones I want to highlight, because it is one of the major safety ones, it's one that we hear most about from our applicants, how difficult it is to create a satisfactory TAR. It's not a simple deal. But it's a technical assistance report that examines all the different uses and all the hazards that are potential and all the safety mechanisms that must be in play if you're going to be using these type of chemicals or materials. So those are there for your review. Also, I want to say there's something very unusual about cannabis use permits. Unlike any other use permit, they're tied to the operator. They don't run with the land. They go to the operator, and if the operator were to leave to go to a different building or sell or transfer the business, that's it. That expires the use permit. And so it's a very unusual kind of use permit situation. And then I also think it's important that you understand, like if you were to choose to deny this application, Eagle Eye still can conduct a lot of business. They can still do level 1 manufacturing under the license that or the permit that was given to them by the city council. They can still distribute cannabis. They can still cultivate cannabis. So all those things they can still do. So really tonight, the question before you is, would you allow the level 2 manufacturing? And I believe that's it. Let's go one more slide. And staff recommends adoption of the resolution, granting a use permit to Eagle Eye, allowing for level 2 manufacturing cannabis products. And that resolution begins on package page 74. And with that, I'll close. I'm available for questions. And then, like I said, the applicants are here tonight, as well as Hans Hennenberg, who can also answer questions if you have questions about the fire department and how they view these activities. Thank you.
Thank you, JP. So now, when I'm looking at the staff recommendations, there's two things. There's a use permit, consideration of use permit, and also the resolution. So that's the two things that
the resolution would be granting. If you adopt the resolution, you'd be granting the use permit.
I see. Okay. Okay, so at this point, I think we'll go to questions of commissioners. So if there's any commissioners that have any questions of staff from the information that was presented today. I see Neil raise his hand. Go ahead, Neil.
Yes, hello, thank you. Thank you, JP there. I've got a question at the back of the resolution on PDF page 83. There's item 41. It's about the fire department, and it's mentioning the Petaluma fire prevention. Is this correct? Or it almost looks to me like 41 through 43 may be applying to new building, and this isn't a new building, but it's referencing Petaluma Fire Prevention Bureau rather than the Adobe Fire District. So maybe it's just a technicality.
You know, since Hans is on this call, I'm gonna see if Hans is available to answer that question. He provided the conditions. Hold on one second. Kevin, can we get, oops, looks like we lost him. Oh, he was made a panelist? Yeah, okay, he's a panelist. He just needs to unpause himself and then he can speak.
Okay, now you guys can hear me. That's what had to happen. I was getting worried about you. I apologize. That's a typo. I do work for several jurisdictions, so that just scratch that out, and that will be Rancho Adobe Fire Protection District or Rancho Adobe Fire Prevention.
And does it? This isn't a new build, but it seems to imply. I mean, what if the roads aren't 26 feet in width? It's putting a number of conditions in there that seems like it comes for a new build.
No, anytime you have a change in use or a change in occupancy, then these fire requirements come into play. So it's not just a new building or a new building, it's a change in use, change in occupancy. So that's where the conditions come into play. If it is more than 30 feet high to the roof, then the aerial apparatus condition applies for 26-foot wide roads. Otherwise, it is simply a 20-foot road.
So in that case, even if we were to approve it and the roads went wide enough, then it would effectively be, it would not come into force, or you would have to negotiate. I mean, have you looked at the roads there? Has the applicant looked at the roads?
We have looked at the roads, yes. And I'm trying to pull up my memo note from when we noted the conditions. And let me pull that up real quick, but I believe we have all the appropriate conditions noted. Rancho. And that was PA 2115. And we noted on November 16, fire sprinklers, fire alarm, fire department access. What it is we, on those conditions, we note that if it is more than 30 feet tall, then you have to have 26-foot wide road. Otherwise, you construct it as a 20-foot road.
So you don't know at the moment whether or not the roads fit that. I mean, looking at it, when I went past the site, it looked like they were wide enough, but.
I believe so. It's been a while since I've looked at it. And we looked at the information that was available to us for what was provided. And that's where we noted the conditions. But if for some reason the building is not over 30 feet or it doesn't require aerial apparatus, then basically the condition is fulfilled. And they don't have to do anything else.
Okay, and under normal operation, they would need to maintain that distance, all access from the building. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's under fire code requirements, they're required to maintain their access at all times.
Okay, it doesn't say on there 30 feet, but I guess 30 feet tall, but I guess you got a quote. I hope it's in that quote for the CFC 503.
That CFC 503, that's the fire code section 503, which calls for those requirements. I'll probably we can modify the conditions specifically to what meets, but I can guarantee you we don't make them do anything that is not required by code or something that's not appropriate.
Right. I'm just sort of making sure it's clear for what the current construction is. And
right. Now, JP, is this a one-story building?
It's a two-story building. But I do believe it is I believe it's less than 30 feet. I've never measured the height, but if it is, it's close, but I would put it on the less side.
Yeah, if it's
lower than
if
30
it's two-story, most likely it's less than 30 feet to the roof. So the 26 won't be required. It'll just be the 20-foot.
I can also say that the building itself is is about 170 feet long, and it's about 26 feet on each side. On the entrances on each side of the building. So you would be able to drive along the whole front of the building and along the sides of the building, no problem. Whether or not you can make that turn to the back of the building, that I don't know, but I do think you can. There's a loading dock in the back. So I would assume it could fit a fire apparatus vehicle, but still you would be meeting that 150, you'd be able to reach the entire building with 100 feet of hose.
Okay, good. As long as that's clear. So do we need to add?
Feet. Yeah.
Would we need to add the 30 feet tall in there, or is that implicit in the?
That's implicit in the code section.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the only question I've got.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hancock. Any of the other commissioners have questions for staff or anyone else on this item? Okay. I had a question. I had a question on one of the conditions of approval on page 85, item number 48, where it says there's a fume hood drain that has direct connection to the sanitary sewer, and it's going to be protected by a berm or standpipe to prevent any chemical spill or leak to sanitary sewer. And I think my concern was I just wanted to understand that a little more because I know that there's Laguna de Santa Rosa behind there. And I just was concerned and had questions about the environmental aspects of it, and was just checking about how often that is inspected and whether it's contained inside the building or how that would kind of like protect the environment from any spills or anything. If I could just hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so excuse me, Chair Lemus, I'm gonna have to apologize. I don't know the details of that. The condition was written in a way that it's kind of like if that fume hood connection is required, or if that fume hood has a direct connection to sanitary sewer. I don't know the answer to that. I do know that those type of elements are reviewed by the City of Santa Rosa Water Environmental Services because they asked to issue the industrial discharge permit for that. They also share the same concerns that you have about protection of the Laguna. As well, that is reviewed through the building department, if that's required through the building permit process, and also the engineering department, since it deals with the sewage system, would be reviewing those things. I just don't have the answer that I think you're looking for is how does this lead to protection? I don't even know. I'd have to see what it would look like on a set of plans to understand how it would work. It
sounds like
the Laguna.
So it sounds like the City of Santa Rosa Environmental Services is kind of putting this requirement in there. They have some sort of standards and checks and measures for this area. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that was just kind of the one thing that kind of stood out to me that I was kind of had questions about. So now at this time, do we go to the public or does anyone else have questions before we go to the public?
I had a question.
Yes.
Thank you. I actually, just clarification, I wanted to make sure I was understanding this correctly. So for consideration today of the use permit, it's just for this manufacturing of volatile materials. And my question there was, when the city council approved this, was their understanding that this was included, or would this be a new, what's the word, I guess, permission or a new type of work that could be done that wasn't originally in what was approved by the council? I don't know if I clearly understood that.
No, yes. Well, let me put it this way. Yes, we're very clear to the council when they approve something, whether or not there's additional approvals that are required. In this case, at the level 2 manufacturing, we did disclose to them that it would also require this use permit approval. I will say this, the application you're looking at is identical to the application that the city council reviewed. There have been no changes in proposed operation or anything also.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was wondering. Thank you.
Okay.
And then I'll ask it just in case, but it seems like it's already then been considered by the council. But It looked like everything you showed us visually was a very self-contained process. But just to ensure we're doing our due diligence with the use permit approval, would this manufacturing of volatile materials have any sort of consequence of like additional smells or anything that might impact nearby neighbors or the community that maybe we hadn't thought of during the original approval process?
Smells in this operation are not our concern. Our concern is the fact that these are explosive type materials. That's why this gets elevated to a use permit. The review, that's our primary concern with that. It's not odors, it's not noise, it's not any other environmental potential other than the fact that faulty equipment. These are the big, when you hear about the people that bootleg this kind of stuff, it's when they're playing around with this that those fires get started, which is why we're really strict about the volatile hazard of aspect of it. Other than that, no.
I see. Okay, thank you.
And just for clarification, to help you understand, and JP mentioned the TAR, the Technical Assistance Report. This is what we've been insisting on: is these type of operations need to provide a report by a fire protection engineer that knows these processes, these systems, so that we can incorporate all of these protection within the building and within the equipment itself. And part of this technical assistance report is that normally in all of our manufacturing industries, all the things that we normally do is equipment that has been listed and tested by Underwriters Laboratory, by manufacturers. And so they have a history that this machinery is safe. What we're dealing with in the cannabis industry is we have a lot of equipment that is not listed by some testing agency, and it's just manufactured by some folks in their backyard. And so this is part of the problem of an underground industry coming into regulation. And so this is where the technical assistance report provides us that security that we have a fire protection engineer that's knowledgeable in this work that can tell us that the equipment is safe. We look at the building code and the fire code that we have sprinklers, we have fire barriers where required, and all this goes into the whole process to make sure that it's safe. And that's the primary reason for that TAR, to make sure that all these safety factors are in place. Because keep in mind, the purpose of the fire department, the fire code is, if there's a problem, we don't want anybody killed, and we don't want to get all the neighbors hurt either.
Okay, thank you. And now if we can go to Commissioner Moore.
Yeah, I had one question on that. So I see there's another level 2 manufacturing in the area. And did we do a conditional use permit for them?
No, in this case, you did not do a conditional use permit specifically for this cannabis. That one, and we're looking at that approach a second time. It's an interesting question that you've raised. But that property was granted one of our more heavy industrial manufacturing permits for using. They were doing anodizing of metal. So the whole building was constructed around basically how to deal with hazardous and harmful chemicals. When we accepted the application, we felt that use permit was sufficient for the cannabis activities, but we're actually considering about withdrawing that application, not because of that, but because they haven't moved forward with the application at a pace that we're comfortable with. But I think in the future, we won't do that. We won't make that conclusion that a previous industrial heavy or kind of medium industrial manufacturing permit would work under these circumstances. And that's because these use permits are tied to an operator. And it has less to do with the manufacturing process, but the nature of the use permit, if you follow all that. But
I do. I was more I mean, if they were manufacturing out there, we didn't see a conditional use permit, but you just clarified that they haven't even started. They just have the permit.
yes, that's right. They have the conditional permit from the city council. But we did examine that. So there are a whole lot of conditions that apply to manufacturing uses that run with that building, that run with that permit, that were applicable to that use had they decided to move forward, if you follow what I'm saying on that. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Noah Hausch. I just want to chime in on this. This is a good point for the commission to think about. When a use permit's granted, that allows that use to continue on that site, whether it's that operator that's being granted or someone else. This is just a standard non-cannabis use permit. And similarly, if a use comes in that's similar but less intense, then that original use permit that was granted is often used to allow that similar, less intense use to move in to that location, assuming they still meet all of the conditions of approval that were placed on that original use permit. So when the commission grants a use permit, it's allowing that level of use intensity and anything that's similar and less than. So it's good for the commission to think about how a use permit functions. And then the distinction with cannabis that JP is mentioning is that they're typically tied to an individual rather than the property. And so we need to be thoughtful of that as we process these cannabis use permits.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I follow
Any other
up on that?
questions?
Can
Yes.
I follow up on that? So,
Yes.
Noah, I just would like a little bit of guidance on that, because I mean that's a difficult leap to make. I think. I mean, previously there was some process there, I guess a deeply industrial process, and I guess now there's I guess it doesn't seem to me to be the same type of process in terms of the solvents and in terms of the type of operation. And the ITAR is very much, that report has very much appreciated that analysis, because that seems to me a completely different operation. So now we have a cannabis type operation, but we can't, I mean, I wouldn't feel capable of analyzing what are lesser usages that aren't in the cannabis industry for that site. So saying that there's a level 1 is fine with me, but saying that, hey, somebody else could come in and do some painting of a car because it's got solvents and things doesn't seem to me to make a lot of sense, but I don't know. That's just
no, that's exactly right. So typically, if say the non-cannabis use permit for automotive painting came before the commission was granted, to use that example, that's a good example, and then a cabinet finisher came in and said, hey, we want to open up a cabinet shop, similar level of use, and they said, our primary element is finishing the cabinets, doing the wood varnish and those types of things. Staff would likely say that's similar or less intense than the auto body level of solvent, et cetera. The hoods are in place. All the conditions of approval to deal with your hazardous materials on that site have already been put on that use. That's what's called a continuing use. And so that would be allowed. But you are absolutely correct. The cannabis use permits are unique in that they do not provide that ongoing right to transfer to other uses.
Okay, so that's the key here is that for this consideration is just, it's going to be this and the person who's put all these plans together, very in detailed plans, the staff that's analyzed the fire department side, if it was to come up again, that the new person would have to go through that process, which seems pretty reasonable considering the solvents that are being used.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
I guess I do want to make sure that you understand that they did go before the city council. They did get the commercial cannabis permit. There is a TAR required. We just viewed it under the scope of the old use permit, but they weren't exempt really from anything this applicant is doing as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioner have any clarifying questions? Okay, if not, staff, is there anyone in the public that wanted to comment on this?
Attendees, please use the raised hand icon to speak and share your comment. Chair Lemus, that will end public comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a resolution before us, and I'm looking to see if someone wants to make a motion.
I could make a motion to approve the resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Cotati. I'll read it full out if there's a second.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
So this is a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Cotati approving a conditional use permit to allow Eagle Eye LLC to perform level 2 cannabis manufacturing state license type 7 at 531 Mercantile Drive, APN 144010045.
Thank you. And can we get a roll call vote on this?
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hancock,
Yes.
Chair Lemus.
Yes. Okay, so it sounds like this one passes. Thank you, commissioners. And for the next item, we have reports by staff. Do we have any reports, staff?
Thank you, Chair Lemus, members of the commission. Just briefly, as I mentioned, it seems like it's been a long time since we've had a meeting. And while that, kind of shows that not a lot of activity on your part, staff has been full swing, kind of doing a lot of the background work for a lot of our policy documents. And so I just wanted to touch on those, give a brief update. So the housing element, we are just fully underway, providing our consultants all the background materials and information they need to get going. The survey, which I think many of you have taken and shared with your colleagues and friends around the community to help us get more input, has been very successful. We've had over 100 responses to that. And we are planning our first public engagement meeting for February 2nd. We're partnering with Roner Park on that. And the primary focus is going to be with our community-based organizations that provide housing services. Many of them provide services in both Roner Park and Cotati. And so similarly, Roner Park has the same public engagement consultant as the city of Cotati does. And so we have partnered with them on this first meeting to kind of outreach to all of our community-based organizations, the folks that provide housing assistance, legal assistance, those kind of broader services that are often provided by a nonprofit community or the larger kind of big picture folks, not necessarily services that are provided at the city level. That will be on February 2nd. Invites are planning to go out by the end of the week for that. And the idea is they'll have community-specific questions, community-specific input sessions, but in a joint meeting. So anything that's for Cotati will be Cotati-specific, and it'll be introduced and discussed that way. But we wanted to try to make it as efficient as possible for the service providers to be able to come and participate and give us as much feedback as possible. Out of that meeting, we'll also be holding a few other stakeholder meetings. We'll look to some of the community-based organizations that have direct input on some of the requirements for this housing element. There's a lot of new law that applies to this housing element, such as the requirement to document how the city is affirmatively furthering fair housing. It's called the AFFH requirement. You'll hear more about it. But essentially, the city is required to engage with the communities who often are marginalized or are not able to provide their input in these policy discussions. And we have to document how we've engaged with them, the input we provided and how we responded to that input to try to reach and provide for those housing needs that those folks have. There is a stipend available as a part of that to try to really help people who may not otherwise be able to participate, to really help them out and give them some options to maybe pay for childcare or take a day off work or a couple hours here in the middle of the day and provide some input. So that will come out of that February 2nd meeting, but I just wanted to let the commission and community know about that. And then secondly, we're looking at February 22nd, which we've already done some polling with the commission, and thank you all for letting me know your availability. That's a council date. Typically the city council, I sent an email asking for 2 commissioners who are interested in providing input on draft housing policies as we move forward. And I similarly asked 2 council members. However, the council, they could not settle on just 2. They were all interested in providing input on the draft policy and documents. And so they did agree to come to our commission meetings as a joint meeting, special meetings to provide input and discussion. So I anticipate those will be very lively. That being said, the first meeting date, of course, is affected by a holiday in February. And so we did default to the council date. I apologize for asking you all to take some more time, but it is February 22nd, and we will get more details out on the timing of that. If you have any time constraints, please do send that to me. We're going to try to keep it as close as possible to the typical agenda, but the council also has their business that needs to occur. So it'll be a pretty in-depth discussion. So that's February 2nd for the outreach and February 22nd for the first joint special meeting. Bike and pedestrian master plan is going on as well. As you know, we're doing that in-house. We're just kind of getting the background analysis and potential project list. So if you, as you're around town and you notice areas where there's a break in the sidewalk, or maybe some bike lanes need to be installed, or even some reconfiguration of some things, please take a note of that and feel free to provide that list or save it up and provide it as we move forward. This process is definitely going to be informed by the long-range safety plan that the city just is finishing up with the Public Works Department, and the Vision Zero project, which is a goal of having no traffic collisions in the community. And so there's a lot of outreach and analysis of our current circulation network that was done as a part of that, and staff plans on leveraging that to inform the bike and ped master plan update, in addition to identifying any specific projects that need to be prioritized and incorporated into the plan. That being said, there's been an email that was sent out. Eris Weaver from the Bicycle Coalition, Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition, is a resident of Cotati, and she's volunteered to assist our staff with review of some of our policies and identifying some of these projects. And she would like to conduct a bicycle tour for a couple commissioners in order to avoid Brown Act limitations. We're trying to keep it to 2 commissioners. Ideally, folks who may not normally bicycle around, to just get their perspective, but it will be videoed, and we will have that available on the website. There is a bicycle and pedestrian master plan specific website set up. If you haven't taken the time, it may be worth going to the community development website and looking around. There's a lot of information we've been adding. We spent a lot of time on that over the last few months. Similarly, there's a housing element specific website. There's a location for folks who are interested in either of these topics to sign up and be kept informed and up to date on all the specific meetings that are moving forward. I'm also excited to announce that we've been able to hire a new staff member. So the city council, out of the last budget, did agree to fund a half-time position in the department. I was kind of concerned about being able to hire a half-time staff, but we were able to find a very experienced half-time associate planner. Her name's Autumn Buss. She's a Sonoma County local. She's been an affordable housing developer. She's worked in housing. She's worked in economic development. She's run agriculture-focused nonprofits. I think she's going to be a very good fit for the department and meet some of the needs of the community. And so I'm really excited. You all will definitely meet her as she comes forward and starts to present on some of the work that we've been assigned. And getting to that, we have a lot of policy work underway right now. So as you're all aware, the Wurner ordinance that was carved out of the objective design guidelines to create its own standards. I did present that to the city council in December. They provided me some additional direction, and so we're trying to get that ordinance finished up and brought back before the council. They've also prioritized staff completing an urban agriculture ordinance. So right now, if your parcel is zoned residential, you're not allowed to do any crop production at all, even if it's a large parcel that's very well oriented towards crop production agriculture. And so that came up for a member of the community, and the council heard that concern and directed staff to start to work on that. So that will be coming before the commission. And along with that, we will be doing the Faletti Ranch rezoning, which I know you all are aware that was a general plan priority. So we're going to pair those two, and we expect to be able to get those done into the commission in March is our goal. Also coming out of some of the Regional Climate Protection Authority, RCPA efforts, City Council did direct staff to prepare a fossil fuel station ban. So we are full swing working on to ban any new fossil fuel station in Cotati. That ordinance will be coming before the Planning Commission. Similarly, the general plan has directed staff to make some changes to the multifamily housing requirements in the neighborhood urban zoning district. So that's been on the list of kind of priorities for the current housing element and general plan. And so staff is trying to finish up some of the kind of laundry list from the current housing element before we have to report to HCD at the state about our status of all of those. And so that was a priority for this budget year. And we do anticipate that coming in the early part of 2022. And then also, lastly, I'll just touch on, we do also plan on working with the city manager's office to review and potentially update the cannabis ordinance. So the item before you just previously was one example of kind of some of the clunkiness that's built into the current ordinance. And so we'd like to take a look at that and try to make it a little bit more straightforward, streamlined process. And so what we're imagining is trying to make things a little more linear and typical of other development processes. So maybe it'll come before the commission for a recommendation to the council. We might make a few other minor changes to address some of the needs of our cannabis businesses. I'm sure if you all are following the news, you've heard the cannabis industry is under some severe strain right now. And it's kind of some of the growing pains, I think, of just industry, JP said, kind of coming out of the shadows. But we want to support them and do what we can and still meet the expectations of the community. So we do expect to see some changes to that. And then lastly, we're starting on the strategic planning process for next budget year. So internally, staff's having conversations, and we probably will have our first strategic planning session with the council in March as well. So I do expect 2022 to be a very busy year for policy work and commission and council work to get all these ordinances in place to further support the community and keep meeting their expectations. So that's just, I'll leave it at that. But just so you know, two of the things we are looking to formally put into the schedule or agenda for next fiscal year is continuing on our greenhouse gas reduction strategy efforts. We had prioritized those as a part of the last fiscal cycle, and the fossil fuel ban kind of rose to the top as the most prioritized effort, but there's other things we can do. And so we do anticipate keeping up that as a priority, and then also formalizing some more public engagement processes into our zoning code for the larger development projects to formally direct how those engage in some pre-application meetings and things are really communicated to the community early, rather than some of the first time people hearing about things is when they're presented to the Planning Commission. So just look for all that. But if you have other ideas, staff's happy to take them under consideration and present them to the City Council, or you're welcome to, as you know, come talk to the council directly and let them know what your priorities would be for the next fiscal year. So with that, I will close the discussion. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Noah, those are a lot of projects happening. So I wanted to open it and see if any of the commissioners wanted to ask questions or clarification. I see that Commissioner Hancock raised his hand. I'm sorry, Vice Chair, I'm learning. Vice Chair Hancock, go ahead.
Whatever there, yes. Thank you, Chair Lemus. Just wanted to know, Noah, did you have any perspective or insight dates on the closure with Commerce Boulevard? And sounds like a good project in Roanoke Park, but I just wondering if you knew when that might be being completed.
I think the date is summer of 2022. So it is a big project, as you mentioned. It's being handled by the Roanoke Park Public Works Department. We have all of the contact information for everyone from the Public Works Director all the way down to the on-site project manager. So if anyone in the community needs that contact information, feel free to reach out to anyone in our department or Public Works, and we'll provide that to you. And we're also hearing from those businesses over there how severely they're being impacted by that road closure. And so we are trying to be responsive to them, and we're working with Roanoke Park to see what we can do to try to alleviate some of the impacts. I mean, a lot of them just rely on the drive-by traffic, and right now that's not happening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions of staff? Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Noah. That was a lot of great information. So what about commissioners? Any commissioners have any reports for today?
I just wanted to say thank you for the lovely gift over the holiday. I picked up my umbrella and my water bottle, and I think that was a nice thing to do for the Planning Commission.
Go ahead. Vice Chair Hancock?
Yes, hello, thanks. I just wanted to make a report. Yes, I got one of the bottles as well, so very good. That worked out nicely. Thank you. Just in time with the umbrella, with the rain, so very useful. I've been attending something, part of Petaluma called an urban chat. And it's primarily a discussion that's also looking at the Petaluma general plan, but they're also very involved with the greenhouse gas issues. Petaluma is quite dynamic with that. And some of the road zero, the zero deaths approach and discussions in there. One of the interesting things that came up though in the discussion at one point is that if we are looking to specify more ports for electric chargers to do just the trenching for them, I think the question that was raised by one of the professionals, and they didn't directly answer this, but how much of the infrastructure do they have to put on the back end? So particularly for low-cost housing, they were suggesting that there might be some unintended consequences that if we say, hey, there's a 40-unit place and require 20 trenches for potential, high capacity chargers, would all the back end infrastructure have to also be put in there? So anyway, it's just a question that I think we may want to think about, and if possible, say, whatever the zero cost planning approach to that, just reserve some space or something. But I'm trying to promote or at least ask questions about what is the back end, the connections to the network on that. So just an area of, as we move forward, there's things get a little bit more complicated than you first thought. A nice simple idea of just put the pipes on the ground for the wires, what impact does that have? So that was my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any reports or information to provide? No? Okay. Okay, so that's the end of reports by commissioners. And next up is adjournment of the meeting. So I want to thank all of you for a great first meeting of the year, very busy, a lot of items down the line. So thank you, everybody, and we'll adjourn the meeting here.
All right. Thank you. Everybody have a good night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.
Everybody.
Bye.